I wouldn't say it's really the SEC that we face threats from. So SEC is the Security and Exchange Commission, and that's really what the shitcoiners are really worrying about, like whether the assets you create gets labeled security. And for us Bitcoiners, really, there's been a lot of cases in terms of financial privacy from the Department of Justice, and some of the biggest cases, first and foremost, is the Silk Road case. That's been in the news a lot because of Ross Ulbricht and Donald Trump campaigning on freeing Ross on day one. But the precedent that laid out really opened up some of the cases that happened this past year, including the Tornado Cash. You sort of blend in with a bunch of other people. And these cases, they've been labeled like money launderers, facilitating terrorism stuff, some crazy charges. So the prospect of being jailed for shipping free and open source software and opening up channels on the Lightning Network was really scary, but there was just simply no other decision for me, at least.
Welcome to the Bitcoin Source, your ultimate destination for all things Bitcoin. Once again, I'm your host, Dawdu, here today for your thought-provoking session. We're thrilled to have with us a special guest, Evan Kaloudis, the founder of Zeus, an open-source Bitcoin wallet designed to help users with payment flexibility and sovereignty. Zeus empowers individuals by allowing them to connect to their own Lightning node, offering a non-custodial solution for Bitcoin transactions. Welcome, Evan.
Hey, thank you for having me. I think we're gonna have a great discussion today. Like you were saying, it's been a while since we chatted, right? We first linked up in El Salvador, adopting Bitcoin last year.
100%. And we had dinner. We talked briefly about like how we kind of got into Bitcoin. For my audience, I'll definitely start from the beginning. So could you tell us about your background and what first drew you to Bitcoin, and what was the moment that made you say, I need to build something like Zeus?
Yeah, my Bitcoin journey, where to begin? So I was always into computers, so I went into computer science in school, and I guess my freshman year, that's when all the Occupy Wall Street stuff was starting up, and man, a whole bunch of people from my floor in the dorms, we went down to like Zuccotti Park. I was trying to see Radiohead play, but yeah, we really saw firsthand that year how messed up the financial system was. And, beyond missing out on Radiohead, we ended up, me, a couple of friends, we ended up going down to Zuccotti Park where the protests were happening a few different times, and, really got interested in, like, both learning what the problems were in the system and what was so rotten about it, and B, just like seeking out solutions. And I had like an uncle who was very much into like the Austrian school, so through him I sort of got into like the Mises sort of stuff, the gold bug stuff. So when Bitcoin first came up, I was a little dismissive, actually, despite having this background, despite having this interest, despite being in computer science and knowing the appeal of gold. I was a little dismissive of it. Like I didn't understand all the ins and outs. But eventually, like later in my college career, I tried it out. Probably did my first transaction 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. Yeah, I think the biggest aha moment for me was when I had some funds I had to restore, and I was able to take my 12 word seed phrase and restore it in a different wallet. And it's really funny because the UI for the wallets weren't that great back then. And when I had first done it, I thought I had lost most of my money. Like the wallet had only restored the first address in the seed. And I'm like, my God, I had hundreds of more dollars in here. Where did they go? It turned out I had to hit the new address button. It goes to show you that the UI for wallets have really come a long way too. But no, the moment was just, it really clicked for me because I realized I could take these 12 words, they're universal. They go cross app. I could put them in my head. I can, memorize them. I can take them to jail with me. I can take them across borders. And that's when things really started to click for me, and I got more interested. From there, I had a crazy journey. I definitely shitcoined. I was mining a plethora of different coins, from Dogecoin to Darkcoin, which was a predecessor to what do they call it now? I don't even know. I'm just so out of the loop on the shitcoins now. Um, yeah, I eventually contributed some light code to a lightweight wallet for Dogecoin. And then at some point, I was trading shitcoins, and I realized, most of them are just grifts and scams, and trying to. It's like a game of hot potato where the last person holding the bag loses everything. And, I had ups and downs, but at some point I'm like, okay, like the real innovation is Bitcoin. I'm going to focus on it. And I became more aware of its limitations. The block limit, the block size wars became a big thing. And I had been keeping my eye on Lightning. And I knew Lightning would be a way to help scale Bitcoin. Not that it was like a be all end all, but it would help us get to the next level. And, once we've got SegWit activated and we had Lightning, I was running my own little node eventually. And at this point, I was out of school. I got like a little gig at a cybersecurity company, and there I ended up wearing like a whole lot of different hats. But I really wanted a way to like use that node on the go, because I knew Lightning, like, okay, like it's really gonna shine with those in-person transactions. Like we get those instant payments. You're not holding up the grocery line waiting for a block confirmation. And and while we didn't have merchants yet, like we do now, we still have a long ways to go, but there are a few places you can go and spend Bitcoin in New York now, which is nice. But I at least wanted to see how my node was doing. Were my channels up? Did I route any payments? Did I make any sats that day? And I'm like, yeah, I know this framework from work for building web applications for cybersecurity for institutions and companies called React. And I had heard about React Native, which was a mobile version of it. And I'm like, okay, I want to do a project with that. Maybe I'll build that out. And yeah, I initially pitched the project to Jack Ballers, who was the founder of Strike. And back in the day, he had started this project called Zap, which was like a Lightning wallet interface and desktop app. And I wrote a few small PRs for the desktop version. And I pitched up like, hey, Jack, how about Zap Mobile? Have you thought about it? I sort of want to, start this project out in React Native. And he said, oh, that's really cool, man. But we actually got people building native versions of, I guess at the time it was the Android app first. And I'm like, okay, I still want to learn this framework. I still want to like learn the ins and outs of this. I'm going to do it this way. And I could also ship to Android and iOS. And I'm like, okay, I'll just do my own thing called Zeus. I started working on it. It took about 2.5, 3 months until I got it to a state where I'm like, this is something. It's somewhat usable. Getting other eyes on this would be good. It'd be great if I could pull other people into the project. And I just put it out into the world. From there, we had contributors trickle in. I think we've had something like 50 plus code contributors now. Yeah, that was back in, what is it now? 2019, I released it. And then from there, I left the cybersecurity company. I worked at Kraken a little bit, doing the Lightning integration. I worked a little bit at Lightning Labs as a contractor, helping with their infrastructure and some Lightning Node Connect stuff. Last spring, I went full-time on Zeus, and I went through the Wolf incubator in New York. And we got a little bit of Kickstart funding, and it's been, 16, 17, 18 months, something, to doing Zeus full-time. And we've come like a really long way. From an app that was like really just a remote controller for, checking in on your node at home and maybe doing some transactions on the go, to now like a full-fledged wallet in the phone, a Lightning service provider that opens up channels so you get connected to Lightning. And a couple of other ventures tied to the business, including our new white glove business-to-business services. We're calling it Zeus Wallet. And we've been using that to help businesses get onboarded onto the Lightning Network, accept payments in person, online, and help them manage the intricacies of having a really high traffic Lightning node and taking some of that load off their shoulders. So it's been a crazy journey so far. But there's still so much to do in the space, and still super optimistic about the future of Bitcoin and Lightning. and I think we made like a ton of progress even in the last year alone. So um, yeah, just it's been a great journey so far. I'm excited where it's going to take me next.
For sure. And you've definitely been through the gauntlet as an engineer in this space. Like, and for people that don't know Evan, like he could be very unassuming of like all the the accolades that he's had in this space. And I think that, what I think the audience would be really curious about, and I know I'm definitely curious about it, is some of those early challenges that you faced bringing Zeus to life. Because of course, you can go through the Wolf Incubator, you can go through working at Kraken, different like scenarios, but I think there's nothing like building your own thing and then realize, oh shit, like this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. So like, what were some of those early challenges that you faced?
I mean, there's been challenges along the whole journey, right? Just like getting my bearings, working in the field and cybersecurity, and wearing a lot of different hats, figuring out what I wanted to do, getting into Bitcoin, and knowing like how many great engineers and cryptographers there were in the space and that have gotten us to that point, and like trying to fight like the imposter syndrome and being like, okay, I don't know anything, but like coming to terms with the fact that okay, that's okay, and I can still contribute in really big ways and push forward on the Bitcoin as a whole, even if it's not doing protocol development, at least not at the start, even if it's not touching Bitcoin Core. There's a lot of different roles for people to play. So getting over imposter syndrome there, finding a way to get initial funding. Wolf was such a great lifeline and just enabled me to just take the leap. And now, this dream has sort of become a reality. We're coming up on 2 years of me being able to do this full time, and there's nothing else I'd rather be working on. But when you're running a startup, there's challenges every day, and when you're starting small, and we're still like a super small team, I'd say there's like a team of like four of us that are working on the project regularly, all in different capacities. Um, but yeah, like the last 18 months, like trying to turn it into a real thing, a tangible thing beyond just the open source project, like every week something new comes up, and you got to be ready to handle. You got to be ready to be able to wear a lot of different hats, go from engineer to product manager to CEO to CFO, to the support guy, right? Answering support tickets. But you also have to have like mental fortitude to be like, okay, this is going to be a long journey. I'm committed to it. I don't know everything that's going to come up on it. I'm not going to have the answer to every challenge that's faced with me right as it comes up, but I have like a framework on how I'm going to address those and how I'm going to respond to them, and sort of like building up that sort of thinking. Um, but yeah, man, like there's just so many unknowns in the world. All I can say is that you gotta be comfortable with being uncomfortable if you want to make things happen, and just be persistent. Like good things will happen if you stick with things. Obviously, you need to know, in your heart, like if this is the thing you really want to be focusing on, and you need to be realistic about the risks associated with it. But if you have your heart set on doing something, you're going to find a way to do it, and you're not going to want to work for anyone else. So I'm just really blessed that I've been able to have the opportunity to do what I'm doing right now.
Sound advice, Evan. And, of course, you've gone through so many things. Like, you've kind of found yourself in some hot water, and a lot of other wallets have, of course. And I think that's definitely a part of the challenges. And we'll get into what I mean by that a little later in this conversation. But one of the most talked about features of Zeus is its commitment to self custody. Could you explain in layman's terms? And I know a lot of people that are Bitcoiners that watch this will understand, but like, could you explain why self custody is so critical for Bitcoin and this ecosystem?
This episode is brought to you by Unbank, your go to Bitcoin exchange with a network of over 28,000 Bitcoin ATMs across the US. Unbank makes Bitcoin simple and accessible. With trusted locations like CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, and Costco, buy Bitcoin with cash,
with no KYC required. Just your name, phone number, and email. Get cash instantly at an ATM or
transfer to Venmo, PayPal, or your debit card with no wait time. And as a non-custodial exchange, Unbank never holds your money, unlike Coinbase, Swan, or Stripe. Independently owned since 2014, Unbank is the most trusted name in the game. And this new year, they're giving back. Enter to win $200 in Bitcoin by downloading the Unbank app and signing up at unbank.com/Bitcoin source. Click the link under thanks to our sponsors for more details. But hurry, this raffle ends February 28th. Don't miss the chance to snag free sats. Unbank your life.
For those individuals, unfortunately, it's not like the bank, you call them up, it's like, hey, reset my online banking password. So there is a newfound responsibility that's really quite foreign to people, especially in today's society. So that's a huge challenge. But there's also other UX challenges, running a full Lightning node on your phone or even having it in the cloud or somewhere remotely isn't the easiest thing to do. There's a lot to learn about the nuances of running it. And, it's just so much more straightforward to just say, oh, I'm going to get this account and now I could spend and receive Bitcoin. It's just easier. It just works. A lot of people will opt for those solutions, but in a lot of cases, those solutions only have better user experiences until they get rugged, until they either lose access to the account, lose the funds entirely, have them confiscated, or get hit with what we call shotgun KYC or know your customer, where they say, hey, you had this account anonymously, but now we got to comply with government sanctions or government regulations because we got too big to show your ID. Even if you go through all those hops and show bills and scan your IDs, your face even, you're still trusting someone else to give you access to those funds at the end of the day. And, they also have full insights into the payments you're making, and they could potentially stop you from making those payments that they don't want you to make. So while I'm really pumped about general adoption of Bitcoin, and it just having a larger ecosystem, a circular economy, if we just default to it being custodial or, being held by these ETF accounts, we're really either just enabling, in the case of like an ETF, enabling the existing fiat system, or just recreating it where, these custodians are the ones who really have the control and they can do things like, impose, financial surveillance on people, or even in a worse scenario, in like some ways that you would argue, is issuing like paper Bitcoin again, effectively getting rid of our 21 million Bitcoin cap. So self-custody is super, super important. And obviously there's a lot of challenges in pushing forward on it, but it's a worthwhile cause. Otherwise, Bitcoin's not worth anything.
in the wake of the news of the Samurai Wallet developers getting arrested and Phoenix Wallet halting services to U.S. customers, you made it public that you were going to fight like hell for self-custody Bitcoin and Lightning Network wallets like Zeus to continue to exist. In the midst of the SEC hammering down on this industry, privacy is also a big emphasis at Zeus. You've discussed features like root blinding in the Bitcoin network. Can you share with our listeners why privacy matters to the average Bitcoin user, and how does Zeus tackle privacy differently from other wallets?
Yeah, sure thing. So I wouldn't say it's really the SEC that we face threats from, right? So SEC is the Security and Exchange Commission, and that's really what the shitcoiners are really worrying about, whether the assets you create gets labeled security. And for us Bitcoiners, really, there's been a lot of cases in terms of financial privacy from the Department of Justice, and some of the biggest cases, I'd say there's three. I think first and foremost is the Silk Road case. That's been in the news a lot because of Ross Ulbricht and Donald Trump.
And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht to a sentence of time served.
Campaigning on freeing Ross on day one, and we're going to hold his feet to the fire and make sure he does that. But the precedent that laid out really opened up some of the cases that happened this past year, and these were both sort of classified as mixers, where people are doing these on-chain transactions jointly with other individuals in order to get on-chain privacy so that your footprint on the blockchain gets obfuscated. You sort of blend in with a bunch of other people. Yeah, these cases, they've been labeled like money launderers, facilitating terrorism stuff, some crazy charges. And I think they're quite ludicrous in both cases, and I hope they get, in the case of Tornado Cash, overturned, and in the case of Samurai Wallet, I hope they at least have the money laundering charges dismissed. It's pretty ludicrous, especially when their users held their own keys. So that set off like a really dangerous standard, and a lot of companies in the space worried about what that meant for Lightning, especially even if you were a self-custodial Lightning wallet, what that entailed. If you were running a service where you weren't even necessarily touching users' funds or controlling them directly, but connecting them to networks or doing these other operations. So yeah, we're definitely not out of the water yet. Some Lightning wallets in the space, they decided to retract operations from the United States. So Wallet of Satoshi, that was a custodial one. They just basically rugged everyone. Coming up on like a year now. I think it was on Thanksgiving, and we were all talking at the dinner table, and I was checking my phone. I'm like, why would you guys just do that now to U.S. users when they're supposed to be with their families? I thought that was very uncouth. And then our friends at Phoenix Wallet, they're based in France. They probably got the biggest Lightning node in the world. They decided to pull out of the U.S. market too, citing some of the past cases, Tornado Cash and Samurai Wallet. And it was at that point we had to make a really difficult decision. Now people are asking me like, Evan, what are you going to do? Are you going to throw in the towel? Are you going to, get out of the U.S.? What are you going to do? And like, it was scary for a moment. And it was scary, especially since I had a son on the way. I have a newborn son, and obviously I want to see him grow up and I want to help raise him. So the prospect of being jailed for shipping free and open source software and opening up channels on the Lightning Network was really scary, but there was just simply no other decision for me, at least. I'm from the United States. I was born here. Even if I were to go move somewhere else, the United States government would still see me as their property. And the way I see it, I still see it, it's like we hadn't broken any laws. I think, for the custodial apps, there's more of a gray area, but for the self-custodial Lightning services, no laws have been broken. And, I certainly don't think crimes are being facilitated on these networks. At least in the framing that these prosecutors are trying to, label them as. So I'm really glad we made our decision, especially with how the environment changed. Back then it was seeming really dicey, but in the months that followed, we saw a lot of support from both sides of the aisle, both Democrats and Republicans coming along to crypto. And I think basically anyone outside of Elizabeth Warren's crypto army or anti-crypto army, whatever she calls it, would basically got on board and be like, yeah, this technology is very innovative. We want to learn more about it. We want to facilitate it. We want to see it more in our country. And then we started having the major candidates talking about it. And RFK said some crazy supportive stuff, how he put most of his wealth into it, how he wanted to get rid of the capital gains tax. Then Donald Trump came in and said he wanted to establish a national Bitcoin reserve. We had him make a payment at PubKey in New York City. So the environment has really drastically changed. We're feeling much better about our positioning, so it's all full steam ahead. Obviously, we can't let our guard down entirely. There's still a lot of, regulations that we unfortunately have to comply with. The Treasury Department has a list of sanctioned countries that we can't sell channels to. Like if you have a node in, Cuba, North Korea, Russia, like we can't deal with those countries, unfortunately. And we have a lot of strict, we have a lot of strict monitoring solutions in place to make sure like that doesn't happen. And, we also like monitor, like activity and patterns on our LSP. Like if you're going to like try to move illicit funds through it or like rob people and try to open up channels to move it like are going to stop you from doing that. That being said, Zeus is very flexible in its tooling, and the Lightning network itself has really great properties, privacy properties, as a sender especially. So, it can really constrict people from viewing what kind of transactions you're making with your money, and that's the way it really should be. It's not really anyone else's business what you're spending your money on. And, we believe in that strongly, and every chance we get, we try to make the privacy in Zeus better. And yeah, it's just been a really great year for privacy on Lightning, I would say, with stuff like blinded paths coming to fruition in terms of, in Bolt 12, that being on by default. Our friends at Lightning Labs have been implementing it into Bolt 11, so L&D gets a taste of it too, as we wait for them to roll out Bolt 12 as well. So now receivers are having great privacy on Lightning too. Yeah, there's definitely still some caveats, especially since Lightning's still inherently falling back to the chain to open and close channels. But we've made great strides, and it's like full steam ahead on privacy. It's only going to get better from here on out.
100%, and I commend your bravery. I'm curious about one thing though. You know how you said that like things are changing, and with Trump being in, I think that he's gonna definitely open the doors for innovation, making America like the number one place for crypto. That's always good news for us in this industry. But I'm curious about something when it comes to like the tech companies, and in particular like the Apple App Store, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had like a rejection in I think 2023 about transmitting virtual currency. Could you kind of tell us about that experience and like the push and pull between innovation and regulation there?
Yeah, so I think it's sort of multifaceted with the app stores, and we've had a couple of different rejections, both from the Apple App Store and both from Google Play. And the dynamics of sort of go back and forth between them. Sometimes Apple's App Store is a little more lax, sometimes Google Play is a little more lax, and we face pushback on a lot of different measures. I would say first and foremost for people that are trying to publish their Bitcoin apps in the store. Obviously, if you have to comply with local regulations, make sure you're, in check with that. But also, you don't have to like if you're doing what I'm doing, largely speaking, like you don't have to get these licenses as long as your users are really holding their own keys. So it's not legal advice. That being said, a lot of the pushback that you're going to get from these reviewers, like these are people that have to review, hundreds of apps a week, and they're reviewing games and calculators and shopping apps. And, even though we're 15 years into this journey of Bitcoin, people aren't educated, even if they do work at a tech company. Like you can't expect someone just does app store reviews to know all the ins and outs and the nuances of your Bitcoin wallet. So to say, oh, hey, do you have licenses for that? Like, don't just be put off from publishing to them entirely. Like you could educate them. There's lots of fields you can input in tester instructions. You could have discussions with them as it's being reviewed or has been denied. So I feel like a lot of our cases have been from that lack of education. But there's also instances in which the political landscape, right, heats up and there is more pushback, and the banks become more afraid of it, and there is more scrutiny that comes down, and we've seen that directly too, where suddenly an app review time goes from 1 day to 1 week. So that's very much true. Directly being targeted, in the really bad case that we had in 2023, it's hard to say directly. We were cited as a source in a lawsuit that someone else had filed without talking to us at all, and that we didn't benefit from it at all. I think that may have triggered the case that you probably saw. Didn't really appreciate being cited in that, and I think it was a really frivolous case. It involved Cash App, and just didn't really have very many grounds. I think that was probably dismissed, that case. But we eventually were able to get on. I think in part because we have a lot of people that rally behind us, and we get loud when these things happen to us because we want other people in the community to know, and we also like to build in the open, when we can. But we've also seen things like, that are just not workable, like we can't work around them. We are banned from the mainland China iOS App Store. I think that's since 2022 or 21. I don't know. That's been a while. So I think users in China have to either go to Android or sideload if they could find a way. So yeah, there's always pushback, and ultimately dealing with these app stores, clearly it's not the way we want to be long term. These are the gatekeepers. These are relics of Silicon Valley, where they want to create their walled gardens and keep people in them and try to take 30% fees off every transaction. And ultimately we don't want to be there. Thank God we have stuff like Android where you can sideload stuff. We have F-Droid, Zap Store, alternate app stores. And thank God the EU has pushed Apple to allow sideloading on their app, so hopefully this will become easier to do over time. We're going to see how it really shakes out. Apple has a really tight grip. They don't want to give it up at all. Make so many billions of dollars. But yeah, we can't let perfect be the enemy of good, and we still want Bitcoin to proliferate throughout society. So sometimes you do have to make these compromises. I wish the iOS was all free and open source software, and I wish all the hardware all these phones were running were open source too. But sometimes you just gotta meet the consumer and society where they're at, and hopefully those conditions improve. We're gonna keep shipping on the app stores as long as they let us, and we're gonna fight to do so. So yeah, it's just another case of persistence. There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of lack of education. But there is still pushback from states and banks and these big corporations. They have all these different interests and shareholders. So yeah, I mean, on one level, it feels like we're really winning in a lot of ways because these politicians are coming around these states. They're coming around and embracing us. But, as we become even more and more of a threat to these traditional institutions, we may be facing even more pushback, and we need to be prepared for that. So, I'm always hoping that things will ease up and go only one direction. But, we got to be prepared either way for things to ramp up. Who knows? Who knows if the next administration after this one does a complete 180 and we all have to run for the hills. So hopefully that's not the case, but we need to be prepared for anything in this day and age.
For sure. And crazy times that we're living in. Like I said, being in the Bitcoin space is being in this new fringe version of tech it's always crazy when you first start off. It's always crazy to be the first guy to pick up a pickaxe and start chipping away at a rock because you know that there's gold there. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Think about it. Silicon Valley, the guys just building circuit boards in their freaking garages, right? Think about the Apple story. Those guys just were passionate and they saw the direction things were going in. And I think in a lot of cases that's what we're seeing now. And the players that are giants or were the giants back then when Apple was getting started, they're hardly around now. They're either in some weird, decrepit, reduced stature, or they're just out of business. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of Bitcoin companies right now. I think a lot of the companies that are going to dominate the space, they're still very much in that building in the garage phase. And it's sort of exciting to sort of be around to see this industry start to burgeon and being able to talk to these builders and then see what they're trying to do.
For sure. Do you have any tips or advice for users looking to improve their self-custody practices?
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, it can be a little daunting, but I think people really need to spend time at least understanding what a UTXO on Bitcoin is, the unspent transaction output model. What Bitcoin is really built around, and coming to terms with how the dynamics of that work. Even if you are namely trying to transact on like a layer 2. If you're going to be doing that in a sovereign manner, you're really going to be interacting with the blockchain at some point. And that's not to say like everyone is going to be interacting with the blockchain. At some point, it's very likely everyone's just on a layer above it, or they all have some combination of trust. But the people who want to stay sovereign are going to be interacting with it, and they need to know how these transactions work, how they're crafted, how the fees work, how change outputs work, how the mechanisms of those transactions getting bumped work. And these things are like really changing every day. I mean, not every day, but we saw a lot of improvements even recently with package relay. So yeah, first and foremost, like try to understand how these on-chain transactions work. If you want to learn more about it without trying to spend actual coins, and you could spin up stuff like Signet wallets, reg test wallets. You can download something like Polar, which is a great development tool that we use at Zeus, and you could even use that to not only send the on-chain or send on-chain transactions, right, but you could also learn how Lightning Network works and have a cool way to visualize that too. So yeah, you could seek out these alternate networks. Testnet 3, Testnet 4 is just rolled out, Signet, RegTest, and you can do all your learning on these and your development on them too. So that first and foremost. And yeah, beyond that, there's always more to learn, like diving into the code of the applications that you use. But yeah, I'd say first and foremost, tangible things without going into code, learning how UTXOs work, learning a little bit more about the privacy properties of Lightning. Still a great resource that I help contribute to with our friends from the Mutiny Wallet team, and sponsored by the guys from Wasabi, is lightningprivacy.com. That's like a really good resource for sort of learning where the catches in Lightning are. There's been some great developments the last year with blinded paths. I wrote a big page on that. A lot of that stuff has actually come to fruition, which is really nice to show that we've made some progress. But there's still a couple other catches that we detailed on there. So definitely recommend that resource too.
Where do you see Zeus in a few years? Are there any features or advancements you're excited about adding to the wallet?
Yeah, but Dawdu, I like to say that we've really built a lot of stuff in public, like openly. We got a couple of features right now we're sort of building in stealth, so we've decided to take a different approach. I think having flexibility with your channels in terms of renewing them from the LSP is something we're building in the open right now, so we could say that. And we're also doing some more business facing stuff, like I said earlier, with our white glove B2B stuff with Zeus Wallet. So we're probably going to be helping burn the other side of the candle. On one end, we're helping consumers get connected to the Lightning Network, but in an ecosystem, for it to really flourish, you need to have merchants and enterprises onboarded to the Lightning Network too. So we're going to be spending a little bit more of our focus there, I'd say, at least in the coming year, and we'll see how that shakes out. But we've got some really exciting customers and clients that we're onboarding right now, and we think they're going to have a very positive effect on the ecosystem. One of our clients already is. So, focus is going to change a little bit there, but we're still going to be focusing on privacy, fully functioning features like our we just added support for hardware wallets. You could go open up a Lightning channel with funds off like a gold card like we've got here. That's super exciting. So we just want to just push stuff to the limit. We feel that in a lot of ways, our wallet has been light years ahead in terms of sheer functionality. We're going to make sure that we stay at the forefront of it, but we're also going to work a little bit more, making it easier for newer users, focus a little more on UX as well. But, we also know our values. We're going to stay true to ourselves. And we're going to keep shipping the wallet that we want to use every day. So definitely a lot of challenges ahead, but we've got a huge roadmap for the next year, and really excited to roll that out gradually. It's going to be great.
Fire, man. I'm excited for you, man. I can't wait to see what else Zeus is gonna do. But I got a few more questions.
Yeah, sure.
But what do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions about Bitcoin today, and what do you wish people understood better about it?
Man, that's a great question. I guess generally, there's still a huge lack in education. You would talk to the average person on the street, and they say, first of all, they're probably not even following it so closely yet. I think as the price continues to shoot up, like retail is going to start to come back, and there will be a lot more focus. But I still don't even think we're there yet. You talk to the average person on the street, they're going to guess that Bitcoin is like priced 50% cheaper than it actually is right now, probably. And they're going to probably think that they need to buy the whole coin. Like, I don't have $60,000. I don't have $95,000 to buy a Bitcoin. And yeah, there's just so much misconceptions people have about it. They don't know it's not controlled by a single company. There's a lot of FUD about it. I don't know. If you go on social media, people say it's just a deep state technology. TIA made it, and I don't buy into that. I mean, certainly there's probably state agents and influencers or people trying to steer things in a certain direction. I think they're everywhere. You could probably throw a rock 10 feet any direction in the space and hit them. But I still very much believe that, Bitcoin is freedom technology, still going to have hugely positive effects on society. And yeah, I just think that people have just been miseducated and led astray by their governments, by the education system, about like what they're going to work and earning and what that money in their bank accounts, like what that really is. Yeah, there's just so much more education to go, and just like no shortage of things to work on to help push that in the right direction. So yeah, that's probably first and foremost.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm now getting the phone calls of people asking like, "Hey, what's up with Bitcoin? Like, I wanna learn more," because it's becoming more of a ubiquitous thing on like C-SPAN and Squawk Box, and you're just seeing it in the traditional financial arenas now.
Yeah.
But what would be your thoughts, Evan, for someone that's still hesitant, and what would be the most compelling reason you would give someone to get involved in Bitcoin right now?
Uh, it might catch on. You might want to get a little bit. I'd say I'd say that's first and foremost. I really think that I've worked. I feel like I've worked very diligently in my life, um, and have been able to you know to earn like a good deal in my career so far. But just holding Bitcoin alone has really like personally um, given me a lot more financial flexibility for me and my family. And I think just for that alone, Bitcoin is worth looking into. It is really truly changed my life, even if I wasn't able to work on it every day like I did with Zeus. Like just Bitcoin I bought and held has really truly changed my life. And because of that, I truly feel free. And it's just liberating technology. It's like it's truly that meme, right? It's like you come to Bitcoin to get rich, you stay because it's liberating. It makes you free. You have so many more options of what you can do in your life. And as more and more people inevitably have to embrace it, even people who are so close to the damn money printer and truly benefit by being able to borrow money at like 0% interest, they have to come around and embrace it. The writing is on the wall. So I think people that don't embrace it, this cycle, they're really going to be kicking themselves. So what I say is, have an open mind. You can start slowly. You can buy just a couple of bucks. You can, experiment. Don't hesitate to reach out to people in your life that you think can help you out. We're all still learning. I'm still learning about Bitcoin a little bit every day, every week. And, just try to stay humble and be open to new things. Because if you're not learning, you're not challenging yourself, you're not like challenging your views and improving your knowledge, then you're stagnating and you're essentially dying. So don't die. Come with us, come live more, come grow, come learn, and, roll the dice. You don't have to go all in like some of us out the gate, but you'll see that even with a small investment, that small investment can go really, really crazy, even in the coming months, right? And from there, you're just going to be hooked. So, just try to apply a long time horizon, think big picture. Like, we're not talking about months, we're talking about decades. And if you can shift your framing to that and think about what's best for your family, Bitcoin is an incredible resource and lifeline.
For the people who might be interested in supporting Zeus or getting involved in the Bitcoin ecosystem, how can they best contribute to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, there's so many ways to support Zeus just by using it and using our LSP, like paying our service fees to get connected to Lightning. That helps us. That's our core business. But you can become a code contributor. If you don't write code, you can do translations if you know another language. If you can't do that, buy some merch. We'll get some sats out of it. Spread the word. Give us feedback, even if you just try the app and give some insights. Feedback's not always 100% useful, but we like to really listen to our users and understand where they're coming from, because there's often some truth that we can get out of it, and that can oftentimes steer development. Yeah, it's hard to say. If you're trying to get in the space, the biggest thing you can do is have proof of work of your own, contribute to projects, have your own repos on GitHub, places where people can see your work and know without a doubt that you can do these things, you've accomplished these things, here they are, you can pull them down, run them on your own computer. Like, that's ultimate. That's better than any resume or interview. Like, I could look at someone's GitHub profile and within 5 minutes have like a really good sense of what their capabilities are. And I think that goes so much further than so many of these other stupid things that we've geared ourselves up to do. And, in the field of computer science, like, that's something that it's much more difficult to do in other disciplines. So take advantage of that and, try not to have the imposter syndrome like that I had. And that's easier said than done. I definitely had that. But, dip your toe in and slowly realize that you can learn it all with enough time and effort. And you could really, even a single contributor can make like a huge, huge difference. And, ultimately those contributions, they compound. So get at it. Don't hesitate to reach out to other people for help, and be ready to push yourself, and, stay humble with the whole thing. Like, it's like, learning to walk. You're not gonna be able to do it day one, but eventually, if you stay at it, you'll be able to even run one day. Yeah, all good things take time. There's no shortcuts to anything in life, really, and then that definitely applies to Bitcoin development and having a career in the field. It could take years.
Evan, thank you so much for sharing your journey and expertise with us. I know our listeners will have learned a ton about self-custody, the Lightning Network, and the importance of the Bitcoin network when it comes to privacy. For anyone interested, be sure to check out the Zeus Wallet. And for more Bitcoin insights, don't forget to subscribe to the Bitcoin Source, a Bitcoin Conversation. Once again, Evan, an honor. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Peace.
Thank you, and privilege is all mine. We'll have to do it again sometime.